American passengers aboard a Hantavirus-stricken cruise ship are going to be quarantined right here in Omaha upon their return to the United States. A CDC official confirms that the agency is sending a team to meet the American passengers when the ship arrives at the Canary Islands. That's expected to happen sometime over the weekend. CNN reports that another CDC team has been dispatched to Nebraska to meet the passengers once they arrive here. They will be placed in quarantine at Nebraska Medicine's Biocontainment Unit, a specialized facility designed to treat patients with highly infectious diseases. In a press release just a short time ago, Nebraska Medicine said, quote, "At this time, the individuals being monitored are well with no symptoms of illness. The quarantine process allows for careful observation during the incubation period of the virus while eliminating any potential risk of spread." UNMC Interim Chancellor Dr. H. Adele Davies said in part, quote, "For decades, we have invested in the people, facilities, and training needed to respond to emerging infectious diseases, and we stand ready to support this effort while continuing to prioritize safety." We do expect to hear from Nebraska Medicine in a live news conference set to begin at 4 o'clock. We will bring that to you live right here on First Alert 6. The Nebraska Biocontainment Unit has played an important role in past outbreaks. In 2014, it was one of 3 units selected to care for U.S. citizens evacuated from Africa with the Ebola virus. Importantly, Hantavirus is much less contagious than Ebola. It's mostly spread by rodents, and only one variant, the Andes virus, is known to transmit from person to person. Currently, there are about 150 passengers and crew still on the MV Hantavirus cruise ship, none of whom are showing any symptoms. Good news there. Former CDC Director Dr. Tom Frieden says diseases like this tend to behave differently on cruises, and there's no reason to think this is going to be another pandemic.
It's not all that surprising to see an outbreak of something that can spread on a cruise ship. On the other hand, what's very concerning is the high case fatality rate here. This particular strain of the hantavirus is quite lethal. Now, that is not to say this is the next pandemic. Hantavirus is not set up to cause a pandemic the way, say, COVID was at this point, and there's nothing to suggest that it is on the way to doing that.
Still, authorities are taking this virus very seriously. Officials in Spain say when the MV Hantavirus arrives, they want no contact between the passengers and the public. In fact, the boat won't actually be docking. It will be anchored nearby, and people will be taken straight to a cordoned off part of the airport. Yesterday, President Trump said his administration will soon release more information on its work to contain the Hantavirus.